What's it gonna be? Ant-Man.
Where do I even begin to express my frustration with this clown film? This is a clown show, plain and simple. Now, I went into the Ant-Man movie Quantumania with open eyes, open ears. I wanted to believe that I could set my biases aside because I had promised myself that I would never go see another MCU film. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this one another shot. The last one that I watched was Black Panther, and I was highly disappointed in it. But you can watch that other video on that. But I went in with this expectation that I was going to give it another shot. This was a new phase of the MCU, and I wanted to see if it was going to change something, switch something up, allow me to resonate with the actual writing and the acting of the film, give me something to root for coming forward in the MCU. But I was only met with the clown show. It was the combination of Star Wars mixed with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. This is literally the summary of this video, right? Because this movie is not only a letdown and a disappointment, but it also foreshadows what's to come in the MCU. And I'm going to touch on all the different aspects of the film and what I liked and what I didn't like, the good, the bad, the ugly, if you would say. But we're going to start from the beginning because I really went into this hoping to be impressed. Now, this is the part where they're going to be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film, then you've been warned. Now, when it came to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, Ant-Man has basically retired. He's helped save the world, and he's enjoying the fruits of his labor. He wrote a book, and things are looking on the up for him. He's enjoying the perks of being a celebrity for saving the world, and he should. So no disagreement there. But what we're quickly introduced to is his daughter, who has grown up and somehow become a snarky, disrespectful, know-it-all teenager. And she's basically criticizing the fact that her father is sitting on the sidelines, that he's not living up to his name and basically going out and helping people like he used to, while she, on the other hand, is doing her part. Okay, and they basically put him down for always talking about the fact that he saved the world. Now, don't get me wrong. If I had saved the world, I'm probably going to talk about it a lot. I mean, how much fame can you get but by saving the world? But put that aside. Not only is his snarky teenage daughter quippy with her insults and disrespect to her father, and he sits there and takes it because as a male actor in these movies in the MCU, you have to somehow bow every time you get a chance to the female protagonist and just accept her criticisms and allow her to be lifted up by putting you down. And it's a common trope that we see throughout the MCU, especially in the last phase. Now, she is, lo and behold, a mega genius. Not only did she build her own quantum device that allows her to map the quantum zone, but she somehow learned all of this basically on her own with a little bit of help and advice from her grandfather, who is not really her grandfather, but he's the father, he's the original Ant-Man, basically. And they basically give you a bunch of scientific jargon to justify what exactly they're doing. And things pick up pretty quickly because the moment that they discover that they're sending a signal down into the quantum zone, the grandmother, I'm calling them grandmother because they're a little older in age, and I'm not trying to remember all of their names because that's how forgettable a lot of these characters are in this film. And she basically is like, cut it off. And then before they get a chance, they're sucked into the quantum zone. And not only are they sucked into the quantum zone, all the ants, there are a bunch of ants that are in the vicinity that also get sucked into the quantum zone. And this comes back to play later in the film. But it ends up turning into a CGI mega world or universe to where everything is CGI. Everything is CGI. This is why it's a clown show, because not only are the background CGI, but there's a multitude of characters sprinkled throughout of this film that are also CGI. Now, let alone, I asked the question, why is it that every one of the species in this quantum realm look different? That doesn't even begin to explain why you would have a universe where every single person in this universe come from a different race or a different type of being with no explanation. And you hope going into the film, once you reach that point, that they're going to explain somehow what the quantum universe actually is and how all of these different species come to mingle in this one area and vicinity. But you never ever get an explanation for that. There's a guy with bubbles on his head. There's a guy who has a laser for a head, but he can somehow speak. And okay, ask the question. If all of these are different species and they live in the quantum realm, you would say, okay, well, none of them speak English. But the film's way of answering this question is by having the characters ingest some kind of goo that allows them to understand all the other species and allow those species to understand them. How it works, you're never told. You're just supposed to accept it because they blow past it if it's not a factor. Now, before we even get to this point, I'm asking the question: if they're sucked into the quantum zone, it is my understanding that they have to be able to be within their costumes and have their mask on in order to survive in the quantum zone, because you're smaller than actual oxygen particles. So you won't even be able to breathe. But lo and behold, they're sucked into the quantum zone. They all survive, even though none of them have their helmets on except like one or two of them. And the rest of them don't, and they survive. They get down into the quantum realm and they're breathing just fine. No mask or anything. Just completely blows my mind. The logic of this film is messy at least. That's the best I can say it with by trying to be generous. It's messy at least. They don't take any time to explain how any of this is possible. Now, you have Kang the Conqueror, who ended up in the quantum zone because he was banished from other kings that he was going to war with or some sort. And now he's trapped there, but he's built this whole civilization and his whole army together in order to oppress and find a way to get back to the real world so that he can fight the other kings. Okay, that's kind of like the premise of this story. Big problem here, though. Kang the Conqueror basically has no way of escaping the quantum zone unless somehow Ant-Man and his family shows up and have the technology able to shrink down his battery in order to power his ship so he can escape. So his whole plan is based on a whim, but somehow it works. Now, we get into another figure, Mordok, which is a big head CGI guy who comes from the first Ant-Man film, who was the B guy who got shrunk down and put into like some weird suit to where he has little arms and little legs, but a big head. Now, in the comic books, we understand that Mordok exists, and it doesn't necessarily make sense in the comic books, but this one makes even less sense. And I'm trying to give them a little bit of rope here because it's an outrageous character, so you did the best you could do. But the character didn't really add any value. He was there for pretty much comedic effect, but in this world, everybody was comedic effect except Kang the Conqueror. Now, I really like Kang the Conqueror, but for the most of the film, he didn't really get a chance to shine and bring out his acting skills until close to the very end of the film, where he gets emotional, he starts explaining things, and he starts attacking people. And that Kang the Conqueror was great. I have a few questions about his power set and how he can control people with his fingers and move people around with his ability to just control any and everything with his fingers, but yet he doesn't use this power at all when it really matters the most. So the family is facing off against Kang the Conqueror. They have a bunch of these different species that have backed them because they've been oppressed by Kang the Conqueror, and they all decide to go to war with his army and try to stop him from getting into the real world, because the grandmother, she knows that if he gets out, he's going to destroy universes, and she can't have that, right? So they ended up shrinking down his battery. He gets the battery and he's trying to escape. But instead of escaping when he has the battery, he decided that he wants to take his whole entire army with him in order to buy time for plot convenience, which gives Ant-Man and his family enough time to stop him. So they destroy this big machine, which won't allow him to transport his people out into the real world. Okay, cool. But what happens from here is there's this thing in this film where the main characters are walking next to the bodyguards because the bodyguards have them like imprisoned or have control of them, but they somehow can do some little Jet Li switcheroo type stuff to where they can beat up the guards and get away. And this happens like 3 or 4 times throughout the film. And it really just allows the characters to get out of tough situations, which is complete nonsense. But that's how they end up defeating Kane, basically, because Kane comes down, he's all beast mode. He's upset that his device has been destroyed. So he starts vaporizing. He starts killing, vaporizing, killing everybody just with his blast. But somehow when he shoots Ant-Man or his daughter or the Wasp with his blast, they don't get vaporized. They just get pushed back. How? I don't know. But I'm told through in this movie by the grandmother that Kane the Conqueror has technology that is so far advanced that it somehow is centuries and centuries ahead of their technology and their understanding. But somehow they're the only ones who can fix his device and allow him to escape, even though he's supposed to be centuries more advanced than them and smarter than they are. But plot convenience, right? So after Kane goes all haywire and Rambo on people, who comes to save the day? Ants. Ants, the same ants from earlier that I told you about, some big CGI ants who decided that they were going to evolve over millions of years to become more advanced than they were when they got sucked into the quantum zone, because somehow time works differently, even though the last time Scott, which is Ant-Man, got trapped in the quantum zone, he was there for like 5 hours, but in the real world, he was gone for 5 years. But that doesn't happen in this film. No matter how long they're down there, time seems to go by regular. Okay, cool. Not to even mention that Kane the Conqueror is the same age as he was when he first got to the quantum realm, and the grandmother aged significantly in that time. Maybe Kane the Conqueror doesn't age at all. Nobody is even talking about that fact. But the ants come to save the day. They basically attack Kane the Conqueror while he's trying to put up a shield to protect himself, and they carry him away. So the family, they all go to try to get home. Okay, they think Kane the Conqueror is defeated, so they try to portal through. And luckily, the grandmother knows how to work all of the technology that Kane the Conqueror has built and created, even though she was gone for X amount of years and didn't even exist in that universe while he was building all of that stuff. She can somehow know how to use it and manage to open up a portal so that they can all get back home. Okay, everybody starts to go through the portal, and then somehow Ant-Man is the last one to go through, but before Ant-Man can get through, Kane the Conqueror shows up and attacks him as if Kane the Conqueror was in that room the whole time, even though he was supposed to be carried away by the ants. Okay, a fight ensues. Ant-Man is getting his behind whipped, which is one of the most favorable parts of the film, and long story short, Ant-Man ends up destroying the device, the battery that allowed Kane the Conqueror to leave, and Kane the Conqueror gets sucked into it after he's attacked from behind by the Wasp. He gets sucked into it, and then the portal closes, and Ant-Man and the Wasp are stuck there. Okay, interesting theory. Well, they're stuck here. Maybe they have to accept the fact that in order to save the universe, that they had to make the sacrifice and get stuck in the quantum realm. But that's not the case, because his daughter is somehow able to use the machine that she used to map the quantum zone to reopen the portal like it's nothing, even though Kane the Conqueror couldn't do it. After all of that time, him trying to escape, he couldn't do it. But she can do it just like that. And the movie doesn't explain it. They don't go through the intricacies of trying to make up some nonsense scientific jargon to explain how she was able to do it. No, they just accept it. So Ant-Man and the Wasp go right through and they escape. Cool. Not cool. But life goes on. They get back to normal. But Scott is a little concerned and a little worried about all the things that Kane the Conqueror said about trying to stop his other forms of himself from destroying the multiverse. And then he just brushes it off and says, you know what? It's not important, and goes on about his life. And that's pretty much how the movie ends. And then you have the post-credit scenes. There are 2 of them. One which you see other Kane the Conquerors and his different alternate forms getting ready to, I guess, go out into the multiverse and do their thing. And they had to wait somehow till Kane the Conqueror that was in the quantum zone was destroyed. Okay, and then the second credit scene is with Loki and the other guy from the TSA sitting there. If you haven't seen Loki, the show, then this won't make any sense. But they're sitting like in back in the day, and they're watching like this old show, and there's King the Conqueror on the stage as another guy who's supposed to be talking about time and time travel. And then that's the end of that. But ultimately, you gain nothing from this film. The only thing you gain from this film is the two post-credit scenes. The two post-credit scenes actually mean more to the MCU than the whole entire film did. And that's just sad to say it. It's a lot of plot holes, a lot of things that don't make sense, a lot of contradictions that were established early on in other Ant-Man films that don't show up in this particular situation in this movie, to where they can shrink down without having a helmet on. There are moments where his daughter doesn't really know how to use the suit, but apparently she's a fast learner, a Mary Sue, where she starts beating up bad guys. She grows and gets real big, and we don't really know how this whole size thing works when they're actually in the quantum realm. So somehow they can grow and shrink, and they're prepared. They have all the pin particles that they need in order to shrink and grow. They came with more than enough, even though they initially didn't even know they were going to be sucked into the quantum zone. So hell, always stay prepared. Better to be ready than to have to get ready, apparently. So and there's this one thing where she gets big and he gets big and they start attacking everything. But yet, from my understanding, when Ant-Man got big for the very first time, or the couple times, he would pass out because of the strain it put on his body. But does his daughter have that problem? No, of course not. She doesn't. See, the MCU doesn't make any sense. They're all about making great, big, dramatic CGI fight scenes that they overlook the story. They don't tell a good, creative story that keeps the watcher engaged. There's no stakes. You don't feel like at any point that somebody's truly in danger, except at the very end when Scott is fighting King the Conqueror. But yet, even then, you don't feel as if he's going to kill him. You know the good guys are going to win. And sadly to say, but I've gotten to the point where I'm actually rooting for the bad guy to win just for me to be surprised. That's what the MCU has become, a clown show. And this movie is the perfect representation of that. Do I have hopes for the MCU going forward? I can't say that I do. But we shall see. With that being said, I hope y'all got a chance to watch the film. I want to know what y'all thoughts are in the comment section below. Did you like the film? Do you think that I'm being too hard on it? Did I get some of my criticisms wrong and that there are perfect explanations for the things that I critiqued? I would like to know. Y'all let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Peace and glory, everybody. Be peaceful and be great. Until next time, I'm out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more. If you would like to get access to exclusive content, consider becoming a member or a patron at patreon.com/thehobby You can also continue the conversation by joining the Hobby Lobby Discord. You can find all the links in the description below.